Welcome to Purpose 360. And today I have a friend, an incredible individual who is so personable, smart, engaging. It's Scott Osman. He's the CEO of 100 Coaches. He's had lots of different careers as well. He'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to talk about leadership today. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Great to be with you, Carol.
Oh, it's just great to see you again. And it's every now and then we catch up, and I'm always learning something great from you. So I want to start. I always love about asking our guests, what were the early in your life influencers that led you to your philosophy today and the kind of work that you do?
It's a great question. I love that question. I wrote about it we wrote a book. I wrote a book with Marshall Goldsmith, Jacqueline Lane, called Becoming Coachable. And I talk about this in my book. My grandfather was one of my early influences. My grandfather had a men's clothing store in Stamford, Connecticut, where I grew up. And I used to hang out at that store, and I watched him interact with customers, and I heard the stories that they had. And my grandfather had purpose. My grandfather had a men's clothing store. I mean, sure, it fed his family and et cetera, but he was committed to helping people look and feel their best by wearing a suit that elevated their presence. And people would come into the store one way, and he would fit them with a suit, and they left feeling so much better.
Oh, what a wonderful influence. Yeah. And so what did you do? Did you hang out in his store as a young person? And what did you do there?
I used to hang out and chat with the customers, chat with the tailors. We talked philosophy. We talked about clothing. We talked about why clothing made such a big impact on how somebody felt about themselves and how they're perceived by others. And it really was an instrument. I think it was his instrument for elevating other people. And I think he really felt that very, very deeply.
And it's interesting that you say that because growing up, my mother was in the theater. And she had children's theater on Saturday. And so she would take us into the city. And she actually had the first off-Broadway theater in New York called the Cricket Theater.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And so, we would be in the theater, and we were doing some of the singing background for some of the shows. And we'd also run up and down the aisles. And I used to play with the little gels that were on the lights to see if I could change the lights. And so that's why I love the question. And because there's this really deep imprinting on you for, your career and your persona.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go to more recent times. And then I also want you to talk about some of the jobs and the professions that you had today. But what inspired your transition into leadership coaching?
I was doing some consulting work, it turned out, with the Tuck School at Dartmouth. And my counterparty there and I were having dinner in New York. And he asked if he could invite this guy, Marshall Goldsmith, to dinner. I did not know Marshall at the time. Like I looked him up on Wikipedia. I thought, oh, this guy will be interesting. And we had a great dinner. Marshall and I really hit it off. And we stayed in contact. And then he called me up a year later and he said, I want to teach 15 people everything I know about coaching. It was his Pay It Forward initiative because Peter Drucker had been generous with him. And I love an adventure, and I love saying yes. And so I said yes. And he put up a video on LinkedIn. 18,000 people applied, and it was quantity and quality. So it was a lot of people, but it was also some of the most incredible leaders and leadership thinkers and leadership coaches in the world wanted to be trained by Marshall. And so we ran the first session. I did something kind of intriguing. It was so much fun, we did it again. And I invited people from the first session to the second session. And because of that interconnectedness created community. And that became the 100 Coaches community.
And so talk a little bit about the services that the 100 Coaches as a company provides. It's a really distinctive way that you are helping people advance to their fullest potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And, before I do that, I just want to take a step back and say, you had mentioned earlier careers. One of my earlier careers was, I developed the purpose branding practice at Landor Associates. You and I knew each other very well at that time. And I have to say that the idea of purpose carries through everything we do. So I we talk about at 100 Coaches, the purpose of coaching is to create what we call human flourishing, what we all call flourishing, right? Which is, it's not just about helping leaders make more money for their company and shareholders. That's important. It's definitely important for them to have like a better sense of their own balance, personal balance. They can't be effective for the company if they're, if they're eating themselves at work. And also all the communities and stakeholders that they work with. That's what true leadership is. Like, true leadership has purpose at its core. The services that we provide 100 Coaches, the core service we have, of course, is matching the best executive coaches in the world with the leaders who have the most impact. We're firm believers that the people who really need coaching are people who are in what we call value hotspots, which is those roles within the company that are going to move the needle in the company. Not always the highest leaders, although they are very often the leaders that we're working with. Sometimes they're people like further down in the organization that are in roles that are actually critical to the company. And getting coaching for those people also very important. And then we just have a very particular way of doing it. We call it matchcraft.
I talk a little bit about that because it is a fascinating process.
Yeah. So matchcraft is a very human interface to making sure that people get the right coach. All of our coaches are independent contractors. They're all solo entrepreneurs. They're different from each other. And trying to find the right coach for somebody, if you don't know the coach, is very difficult. But since we're in community with them, we really have a deep understanding of each coach's particular way of coaching and their background and what they know about leadership. And so what we do is we have what we call a discovery call, the first call in the matchcraft process, just to understand what the leader's looking for. And we'll often spend a half hour or more to understand what the issues that they're facing. We're listening not only for what they say, but for what they don't say and the way they say it. We've done this hundreds of times now. So we're hearing things that they don't even know they're communicating. And at the end of that call, we're pretty good at saying, here's what we think you're looking for in a coach. Did I hear you correctly? And we're right. And then we take 2 or 3 days to think about who are the right coaches for this person. So we're now thinking, like you said, over 100 coaches that we're drawing from. We reach out to 3 to 5 of those coaches. We find out if they're interested in the assignment, if they have capacity, willing to work with the budget. And then by the time we come back 3 days later for a curation call, we have 3 people that we think would be an extraordinary fit, and not just great for this individual, but different from each other. Because when you do a great curated set, you're actually helping people learn a little bit more about what coaching can do for them by giving them 3 different styles or approaches or backgrounds, whatever. And if they agree with us, which they always do now, we then set up the chemistry calls, because in order to find the right coach, you actually have to experience that coach. And it's critical to meet more than one coach. It's often the case, you'll meet one person, you'll think, this person's amazing. And then you meet the next person, you go, this person's also amazing, but for a different reason.
Right.
And it's not until you've really met at least 3 people that you know what's really right for you. Not infrequently with us, I'll have a selection call, which to find out who they chose, and they'll say, all 3 of them are amazing. I don't know how to choose between them. And we have a nice way of teasing out what they're really looking for. I personally think their difficulty isn't saying yes to one of them; it's saying no to 2 of them.
Okay.
It's often, yeah.
Now, you're a coach, but you've also been coached, or as affectionately called, a coachee.
Correct.
So that's really you're in the shoes of your clients. So I'm curious, what did you learn personally about having both sides of this equation, and how does that influence 100 coaches?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things in coaching that are just nobody, you don't learn in a business school. Nobody ever mentored you. They're just things that unlock what you need to know to run a business. There's another part of coaching that is having a neutral sounding board, right? Especially when you're, CEO of a company or a senior leader in a company, everybody kind of has an agenda, and you don't have a very neutral relationship with anybody else in the company. And so having a coach gives you the opportunity to have that neutral relationship. But I think my favorite part of coaching, and certainly the most impactful for me, was I found the coach who really I think did the most for me. I've had a couple coaches who've done this. Is removing the internal barriers that we place on ourselves,
Mm.
of self-limiting beliefs. In fact, my first self-limiting belief was, things were good.
Okay.
Like the business was going
Right.
well. I was pretty happy with the business. Everything was going fine. And I was talking to my coach about that. And he says, thinking that things are fine as they are is a self-limiting belief,
Mm.
because it's stopping you from expanding into the possibility and full potential of what you can do. And so that was a huge unlock for me.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. You also, I'm going to, one other trait about 100 coaches is you talk a lot about generosity.
Mm.
And why is that so important to the success of 100 coaches? And it's just woven into so much of what you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to that story I was telling of, Marshall wanted to pay it forward. Peter Drucker had been generous with him, and Marshall wanted, and that is really the absolute essence of our DNA. And candidly, I would say for most coaches, that's the core of coaching.
Mm.
I mean, certainly they should be well compensated. That's part of my job for the agency is to make sure they're very well compensated. But they're not doing it typically for the compensation.
Yeah.
The job of a coach, is it's such a high impact world, again, at the level that we're working at. So when you have the ability to work with a cadre, a number of different CEOs, C-suite leaders, even, entrepreneurs, and help them advance their company in a way, like I said, that creates flourishing,
Mm.
then you're having a pretty significant impact on the company and the society around that company. And that's all part of generosity.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
And I want to get into purpose and coaching and leadership in a bit. Let's begin to lean into leadership.
Hmm.
And so I want to start by saying, how do you, now this is Scott Osman, but it also can be the CEO of 100 coaches. How do you
Hmm.
define leadership today? How do you define it? What are the greatest needs today in this chaotic world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just defining leadership, leadership at its core is the ability to get people to follow you.
Hmm.
Right. So it's kind of a neutral idea. I'd love to say, leadership is taking people to a higher place, but at its core, leadership is just getting people to follow you. Because if you can't get people to follow you, you're not a leader. Um, and then we get to like, what does great leadership look like?
Hmm.
Um, the kind of leadership we aspire to, the kind of leadership that most of the companies that reach out to us looking for their leaders to be sort of next level leaders, what are they looking for? Um, and I have to say, as you move up the ladder of leadership, so
Hmm.
if you think about the way somebody progresses, they start a job, they're an individual contributor, then they get elevated to manager. They still know how to do the job, but they're telling other people how to do the job. And then the next level is that's the first level of leadership is once they go beyond manager.
Okay.
And in that next level of leadership, what you're doing is you're now a little bit further away from doing the work, um, and a little bit more towards setting vision,
Hmm.
and saying this is where we're going. Collectively, this is how we're going to get there. And then I think a huge job of leadership is, I'd say taking care of or making sure that everybody has the resources they need to be
Hmm.
able to do the job that they need to do. And again, like we said before, resources is, it could be financial resource, it could be people resources, it's time resources, it's taking care of themselves. You as the leader are really responsible for the people that you're leading. And then as you move up, so then you're a leader, now you're a senior leader, even further away from the actual work. And even more towards setting the vision, inspiring people to do the best work they can do.
Mm.
Making some tough decisions about what the priorities are within the company or within the division that you're working on. And then you as you continue up, it just gets more and more focused on vision, priorities, inspiration,
Mm.
and then making sure everybody has the resources they need to be successful.
So towards that end, how do you balance the human side of leadership, empathy, vulnerability, and the performance side, the results, the accountability, maybe this division needs to shrink. Maybe we need to change this. We have AI influencing everything. We'll talk about it later, but
Yeah.
how do you balance the two sides?
Yeah. I think that is such a hard question for leaders because you've got to balance the needs of the entity
Hmm.
with the needs of the particular person.
Right.
And I have always found that um, if you can help people be in the best position for them, right? So anybody's in a job, if you've ever been in a job that's a bad fit for you,
Mm.
staying in that job is not doing you any service. And so when the company downsizes, there's going to be roles that are no longer available, and people who unfortunately are going to have to move to another role that's hopefully a better role for them. And I think that a great leader can do a couple things when that's happening. Number one, obviously, stay compassionate the whole time. Like recognize that this is, can be traumatic for the people who are having to leave the company. Um, Take some responsibility to the best of your ability to help them transition to a better role.
Mm.
Um, Help them see their strengths and weaknesses. I think I don't know that it happens very often, but I think when people are transitioning out of a company, that's a great place for mentorship, and to help them see like where can they be a better fit, and just sort of don't see the humanity of the people that are moving on, as well as the humanity of the people who are staying. Right?
Mm.
Because of course, when there's a reduction in force, the people who stay also have some trauma,
Yeah.
and I think it's important for leaders to see that.
And let me just shift to today and a very current need, which is AI.
Hmm.
And I'm sure, I would assume that's something that you're coaching your leaders about. That's, such a significant transition in our world. What's coming up for your coach? You've got coaches and then their clients. And then what are you hearing
Yeah,
overall about how we help with the AI transition?
yeah. It is. You're right. It is the topic on everybody's mind right now. Um, and candidly, I think the script has not been written. It's,
Mm.
we are still barely in Act One in the AI transition that's happening. But I think one thing is pretty certain, and that is, for the individual, the sooner you can become comfortable with AI, the better.
Mm.
One thing I hear, we spend a lot of time with HR professionals, and one thing I hear them saying frequently is, your job isn't going to be, in most cases, the job is
Right.
not going to be replaced by AI. It's going to be replaced by a human being who understands AI. And so you have to be skilled in how to use it.
So interesting question, which is the higher you go, the CEO or the COO may not even be that fluent in AI.
Hmm.
How are you coaching them? We're dealing with our firm, which is, really trying to spread it through. And I, do a ton of experimentation. What are you coaching your leaders to do in terms of senior leaders regarding their AI fluency?
Yeah, it's such a great question, such a big problem, and obviously a lot of what we do is on a case by case basis,
Hmm.
um, and at the same time, we also know that leaders are going to forums and conferences, even small group settings, to at least familiarize themselves with the changes that are going on with AI.
Mm.
So it might be the case that you don't know how to use AI, but awareness of what AI is doing and can do, I think, is critical.
I just giggle every time I use AI and whatever, and it's like I add content and then it just gets so much better. I go like, oh my god, I can't
I
believe it.
know.
I want to thank the AI, like thank you, person. And there's no person there. It's a funny experience. Um, what does and do you have any AI leadership coaches yet on your roster?
Um, Tell me what you mean by AI leadership coaches.
Well, it'd be a leadership coach, but someone who's really going to help
Oh yeah,
organizations evolve at the senior level with their AI fluency.
we have a guy. His name is JD Meyer. He was the innovation coach to Satya Nadella at
Ooh.
Microsoft.
Oh, all right.
And
Well, that's
he
a
is
good experience.
he is he and I talk, and and he talks. He's a very fast talker. He's incredibly knowledgeable, and he has insights into how AI. And he's also able to slow it down and bring it to a level that I can access. And when I talk to him, I find out about like really what is the cutting edge of AI looking like right now. And I just hope to stay up with it. The more leaders we can bring in contact with people like JD, I mean, he is like, there are some leaders who are like, I need to be really fluent in AI, and he's a great coach for them. But AI fluency is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Satya. I just love, just an amazing human being with an amazing backstory. So when you've coached, so you've gone through the coaching relationship, and whether it's you as a coach or your coaches in 100 coaches, what's a success? What are different flavors of success that these leaders, they've been coached for a year or so? What's it look like?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different types of there's a lot of different successes that happen in coaching. Even in a individual coaching engagement, there's a lot of successes. One of the things we've learned is at the beginning of coaching, both for the person getting coaching and for the company because typically the company is paying for the coaching, it's really good to establish what success looks like so that the coaching is coaching towards that successful outcome. Many other things will happen also. But like, we like to know, this is what the company wants to see from coaching so that we make sure that we hit the mark on that. Some of the other things that happen from coaching that I think are wonderful successes is most leaders from coaching find greater balance in their life. Most leaders through coaching have a better sense of how they're perceived by others. It's almost it's one of the most consistent thing. Consistently, I think very few. I was going to say very few. Almost nobody truly understands how they're perceived by others
because they're in a bubble in a way.
Yeah, I think I used to say the jam can't read the label on the jar. Right? Like, you can't see yourself.
That's very funny
because you're in the inside.
Yeah, you're right.
And so a lot of what very often coaches start with a 360. And it's people around them people around the leader telling the coach how they perceive that leader, and the coach distills it down and communicates it back in a way that the leader can hear, sometimes soft, sometimes hard. And the frequency with which the leader will say, oh, I'm sure everybody's going to say glowing things, and typically the coach will say, well, we'll see. And it's always it's always diverse, and you learn a lot. And that is, one of the biggest successes of coaching, I think, can be a healthy dose of humility, and recognizing that a lot of the things that you thought you were doing well, not so good. Being a better communicator because you think you're communicating well, and then you find out, like, one of the here's a big thing that leaders learn in coaching, is when you become a leader, especially as you move up that chain of leadership, and now you're becoming a more important leader. Initially, like your whole life, you're saying your opinion, you're talking, you're getting a gold star and 100 whatever, you're very successful, great. And then you become a leader, and when you talk, what you say is never an opinion, right? What you say is an order. And so if you're the first person to talk in a meeting, other people can't give their opinion because you've already told them the answer, right? You imagine you say, like, is it, we have 3 colors here to choose from. Which color do you think? I think red. Well, okay. Right. Everybody's kind of like, that's a pretty big barrier. So one of the things that a lot of people learn in coaching, if they haven't learned it by then, is as a leader, you have to wait until everybody else has spoken, and even then, and then even then, maybe not talk.
And maybe not talk. That's even that's a superpower. Like, just listen.
Just listen, because then you're basically letting people know that I'm so interested in your opinions. I'm going to listen to your opinions and go with your opinions instead of listening to your opinion and then going whichever way I want to.
So towards that end, what's the one truth about leadership that most people resist, but they need to hear it? or maybe a couple truths?
What are the biggest truths?
That people resist.
Um,
They resist. Like, I don't want to hear that. You know?
yeah, well, I mean, I think there's it's funny. We just one of my colleagues, Claire Diaz Ortiz, just wrote a book with Marshall called "Why Can't They All Be Like Me?" Um, and and there are certain leaders who one of the truths they resist is they resist the idea that everybody's an individual with
Mm,
their perspectives and points
mm,
of view, and they're different from your perspectives and
from
your
me.
points of view.
Yeah.
Um, but and this kind of goes to purpose a lot, is diversity creates extraordinary power. And if you're building a team of people like you, you're not having the power of that diversity. So regardless of how good a leader you are, how
Mm,
great an individual you are, diversity always makes the team stronger.
mm, okay.
So I think that's powerful.
That is very powerful. I know that because you do so much work in leadership, you've created some archetypes of different types of leaders. Can you share a few of those? Oh, you're going to say, can
Oh
you
yeah, no,
remember
just,
them?
I'm not going to remember. If you can prompt me, I will definitely tell you all about them.
Okay, I did write them all
Uh,
down.
yeah,
Can you remember a couple?
Um, hang on, I have them.
That's okay. Hang on.
Yeah, what?
All right, that's
Yeah.
okay. Let me just we'll move past that. Are there industries that have that just constantly knock out great leaders? I mean, remember GE and Jack Welch, and he had his whole way, and boy, those are
Mhm.
all leaders, Six Sigma and everything. But are there today, in 2025 industries? I mean, we're going to say like the tech industry because they're constantly break it and then do it forward. But which industries are really popping out the best
Yeah, I
leaders?
mean, it depends on what you value in leadership.
Okay.
Um, there are definitely people who would have said, in his day, Jack Welch was like minting great leaders.
Mhm.
In hindsight, I don't know that those are really the leaders that we would be modeling ourselves after.
Mhm.
You know, um, there's a great book written by Sid Finkelstein called Super Bosses that talks about the great leaders are the leaders um, who mint other leaders.
Mm.
And the way they do that is by helping people advance. And I
And
think,
flourish.
yeah, and flourish.
Yep.
And so it's an interesting thing because it's a little counterintuitive. Um, great leaders bring people into their system. They identify great people. They nurture and encourage those great people, and then those great people leave and go
Mm.
on and do other great things. And you'd think, well, my gosh, like, how do you invest in these people and then they go off and leave? They're taking all that value with them. But in reality, I think you're creating a pipeline of new talent coming into the organization. And you look at any organization, they can't retain all their great talent. I mean, we have
Mm.
this all the time
Mm.
where a company is CEO succession. They've identified 3 or 4 internal candidates who are potential CEOs. And so we identify a coach for each of the candidates. We get them to the
Ooh.
best of their, peak ability. And then one of them becomes CEO.
I hope it's not the Hunger Games, by the way.
No, it's not the Hunger Games, although it feels like a little bit
Yeah, I
sometimes.
bet it does. Yeah.
But then the other ones, they either go off and do something else or they
Mhm.
find a position within the company, but it's difficult. In a
Mhm.
company that encourages people when they've hit a certain peak within the company, having them have the potential to move on,
Mm.
you're creating the opportunity for more young people to grow within
Come
the
up. Yeah.
company, bring their innovation, their sense, and also you're going to attract the best people because the best people don't want to start in your company and finish at your company. The best people are constantly thinking, how do they increase their value? And if they
Mhm.
see you as the conduit to a greater leadership role, no matter where they go, then you're going to get the top talent.
Mm.
And again, it goes back to that thing I was saying about like leaders' responsibility. The core of leadership is helping the people that are in your system reach the fullest potential that they have. And within that, you're going to match a lot of that full potential inside the company, and sometimes that potential is going to go elsewhere. But yeah,
Yeah, and I'm curious about what is the role of humility in leadership today?
Hmm.
Because there seems to be this, the bravado of the Jack Welch days that,
Yeah.
in the world we're in, a little bit more kindness. And I'm
Yeah.
hearing more about the power of humility. So how do you coach for that? Are you asked for that? What are you seeing about humility?
Yeah. So I love that question. Um, Internally within the company and in your role as a leader, I think humility is one of the greatest strengths of a leader.
Mm,
Um, Actually, we were talking before. Hubert Joly, great story of humility.
yeah.
He came in. He was brought in to Best Buy when I think Best Buy was one of the last big box electronics retailers, and it was just assumed that Best Buy was also going to go out of business.
Right. Six
And
months and gone.
6 months and gone.
Right.
And he went in and he's super smart guy, has all the answers, very successful career, McKinsey and Harvard, the whole thing. And he comes in, he can't figure out the problem. And so he goes to the stores, and Marshall, I think, helped coach him to this. And he goes to the stores and he's talking to the people. He says, "Look, I'm Hubert Joly, CEO of Best Buy. I don't have the answers to help us in this problem. I need your help." And that was it. And he became known for like raising his hand, like, "I need your help." And because he did that,
Mm,
he heard from the people at the front lines what actually was a possible business idea that would save Best Buy. And it did. He took the advice of the frontline
mm,
workers and understood what the
right.
customers really wanted and had the humility to go with their insights instead of his intuition.
Mm.
And of course, Best Buy continues to be a thriving company.
And it's a great book, so I recommend. We'll put it in our show notes. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that he gave pride back to the blue shirts,
Oh yeah.
and I love the fact that he said, when someone comes in, don't sell them something. Listen to what are their needs, and become relational with them.
Yeah.
And he became relational with the blue shirts, and the blue shirts became relational with their customers. And they were then seen as problem solvers.
Hmm.
It's a great, great turnaround story.
Yeah.
And okay, let's see if I can remember. I better remember their purpose. Yeah, so their purpose, which is very wonderful, is enriching lives through technology.
Mm.
And really short, very, very memorable. And I love when he said, people go, well, purpose, it's something on the wall. How is it really real? But I remember when he says in the book, they created new products for seniors to live in their homes, to stay in their homes, a whole new line of business, enriching lives through technology. Very, very specific. So
Yeah.
I love that you gave the example, and I know that he is a friend of yours, is a coach of yours, and so an amazing human being. So let's pivot a little bit, or go to the role of corporate purpose today.
Hmm.
And so, very curious about when you're coaching your leaders, no matter what industry they are, public or private. How important is it having a distinctive purpose for them today? Are they saying, Scott or Marshall or whomever, I need a purpose, I need to find my purpose, I need to activate my purpose? What are you hearing today?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Carol, you and I go way back in the whole world of purpose. So I have trouble hearing any leader without thinking about purpose.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, so, but the truth is, at its core, purpose is, like understanding where you stand, like where are you grounded, like how do
Mhm.
you direct yourself? Um, it always includes, I don't know why we always have to say this, but it always includes like making sure shareholders are well represented. They're always well represented. But understanding that a lot of the things that we think about as being in opposition are not in opposition. And having a purpose helps you see, um, not that they're in opposition, but they require creativity to see it all fit together.
Mm,
And purpose gives you that creativity to be able to say, like, we're going to do this. It's in alignment with everything we stand for, and that's what's important to us.
mm.
Yeah.
And so, as you're coaching leaders, and so let's just say that they, first of all, they don't have a purpose. So
Hmm.
do you coach them to, this is how you could get there in terms of conversations with their senior leaders? I'm just curious about how you coach them first to find and then to execute.
Right. Well, I mean, if it's me, so we have over 100 coaches, and many of our coaches are coaching things outside of the world of purpose. So I'll really just talk about my interaction with leaders in the world of purpose.
Sure.
Although I'd also say there's a phenomenal guy, Martin Lindstrom, who's I think the greatest
Brand guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
brand guy
Great.
in the world.
Yeah.
And I think everything he does starts with purpose.
Mm.
He is really firmly committed to understanding like who is the customer, where's the heart of the customer,
Where's the heart of the
um,
customer? Mm.
and like it all starts from there. And I think that's where purpose starts from. And purpose is not like none of our companies. There's no company that is in business that isn't in business because of their customers. So like we don't like come up with a purpose that's in a vacuum. We come up with a purpose that's in alignment with where our customers are. And I think as a leader, that's like when I'm coaching with a leader, that's where I'm going to ground that.
Hmm.
Is I'm going to say, look, you're not in a vacuum. This company's not your toy, right? You're a
Yeah.
steward.
A steward,
You're
right? Great.
you're going to be here for a period of time. Then you're not going to be here. You're not going to be
Hmm.
here forever. We all know that.
Right.
Um, you're a steward of the brand. You're a steward of the employees. You're a steward for the stakeholders. But you're also a steward at the end of the day for the customer.
Hmm.
And the customer wants the service or the product that you have, but the customer also has a heart.
Mm.
Understanding and aligning all of that
Right.
with the purpose of the customer, which becomes the purpose of the company, I think is where great leadership sits.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the way you stated that. So let's just say a company has a purpose. So you're doing your coaching, et cetera, et cetera. But the greatest challenge today, and there's a lot of performative purposes are on the
Mhm.
wall, but they're not executed.
Yeah.
Is there some way that you can help enlighten or coach your leaders to have it really trickle down to the blue shirt, to the
Yeah.
one that's truly engaging with the customer, truly hearing what the real needs are?
Yeah. I mean, between us and everybody
Mhm.
listening, performative purpose is in purpose,
What
right?
is it?
It's not.
It's a slapping something on a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purpose starts with believing that this is why you're leading,
Mhm. Mm.
right? And it informs all of your decisions. It informs all of your actions. And I think the thing that's really struck me about leadership in general, and I was in branding for a long time, and I thought like branding is the way you shift everything, like
Mm.
just change the way a company perceives itself, and then I think it turns out leadership is where everything sits. And a leader who leads with purpose um, sets an example for all of the people that they're leading. And that's why leading with purpose is just so utterly critical because, you know, everybody's watching the leader.
Mm.
One of our great leaders, I think it could have been Jim Kim from the World Bank. He said, one of the hardest things about being a leader is this, the phrase he used was, you don't own your face.
Hmm.
And what he means by that, and this, I'll bring it back to purpose in just a moment. What he means by that is if you have a morning and you wake up feeling sick, and you show up at the office looking like you feel sick, everybody reads your face and thinks something's wrong with the company.
Right. Uh-oh.
They don't
Uh-oh.
know. They don't know you have the stomach flu.
Yeah.
They think you're upset about something happened in the company, and that impacts everybody. So
Mm.
you need to show up looking like you need to show up no matter what. So that's on the downside. On the positive side, if you show up with purpose all the time and you make purpose part of every decision, not in big flourishing ways, but in subtle ways,
Mhm.
then people will follow your example. And they will also, the next level down will lead with purpose, and people will follow with purpose. And that's how it infuses the whole company. It
Mm.
always starts with leadership.
It does. And I just had this eureka moment because, the consulting that we do for clients, we're always talking about purpose at the center and how do we find the purpose, et cetera. I never had a ring around it about leadership ever.
Mm,
So we're going to have to, figure out how we might do a little bit of work together
absolutely.
because it's the missing link. And
Hmm.
I have to share with you and our listeners. We just had Steve Rockland on the show. He's from Impact ROI, and he just delivered the second in a series of Project ROI, which is a meta-analysis of over 600 surveys, mostly academic, about sustainability, corporate responsibility, and purpose. And the results from that, if effectively executed,
Hmm.
are extraordinary. I mean,
Yeah.
growth 2 to 5 times. You've got less than HR turnover by 60%. You've got, let's see, I've got it right here on my wall. Profitability as high as 21%. Shareholder returns as high as 6%. I mean, huge, huge results. Yet you'd only get it by the effective execution. And the
Yeah.
effective execution, as I'm learning more and more from you, my dear friend, about
Mm,
leadership and the
yeah.
humility of leadership and the listening of leadership and the being patient. Love it. I
Yeah.
love it. That's
You
see,
know,
you're giving me a gift here. That's great.
as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, I would be so interested to see longitudinal studies about companies and how they
Mhm.
do on things like that, um, tagged by who was leading at the time,
Mm.
right? So you can imagine a company has a 10-year span, and in that 10-year span, they have one or two CEOs. They could do different. The company will be different under each CEO. I mean, I think about, gosh, that like wonderful, horrible story of BP, right? Where, I can't recall the name of the CEO, but one CEO came in, he's like, we're going to be the sustainability company, and they
Oh yeah.
rebranded,
Right.
right? And
Right.
then he left, and the next CEO came in, he said, we're going to make more money. And they ended up with Deepwater Horizon.
Right. Right.
They could have been the leaders in sustainable energy. They had a 10, maybe longer year head start over everybody. Um,
Mm.
the brand, well, the beautiful brand, did not
Oh
help the
yeah.
company when the CEO took a different course. So it's
Yeah.
really,
And I agree.
yeah.
Well, a great example of that is one of my favorites, but is Unilever.
Hmm.
And Paul Pullman, I've had him on the show multiple times. He's amazing. He's the OG to me. I mean,
Hmm.
he is like, oh my God,
He just
my
won
heart.
Thinkers 50 number one thinker in the world.
Oh
At
yay!
the
Oh,
Thinkers
that's
50 in London, yeah, for
oh
his
my God, and
book, his new book.
he's so generous. I mean,
Hmm.
he heads up so many groups, and he's so helpful with indigenous people and youth and such.
Mm,
He is. I got to go to One Young World, which is like the Olympics for social impact, youth. And he's helped create. He's like created so many things. I'm so thrilled that he won that. I'll have to send him a note.
mm,
But when he was at Unilever, 2009, and the world was going to shit, and he said, and it's part of his upbringing. He's so humble, and he's got great humility. His upbringing, and he was actually a janitor at P&G. So
wow.
way back when. Anyway, so he created, that Unilever is going to make sustainable living commonplace. And he, took the 30 or 40 brands, and they all had a purpose, and they really lived the purpose. And he returned over 300% growth to the
Hmm.
company over 10 years. And it was baked in. And when he decided it was time to leave, Alan Jope came in, and Alan Jope basically said, all our employees expect it. It's in our culture. We will continue it. And then you had issues with P&G and return on investment and et cetera. And then Alan left. And now it's basically the greats of the people that we know at Unilever. And I love Unilever. We got to
Yeah.
work with them. They've left. And making sustainable living commonplace, we also have to make a profit. So it's sad because I adore them.
Hmm.
So consistency and longevity when you're a publicly held company, a little different from a privately held company, but leaders are so critical. But that humility
Yeah.
is great. Um, I wanted to ask you, let's see, because we're getting at the bottom of this, but I love the conversation. The role of creating the richest cultures, the
Hmm.
cultures that truly exude their attitudes, their character. What's the best way for leaders to do that?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the simple phrase, you go first.
Ah, You go
right?
first.
So any behavior that you want other people to follow,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you have to be the example of that behavior,
Mm,
right? If you want to have a culture of humility, you have to be humble. If you want to have a culture of generosity, you have to be generous. Like
great.
don't expect that you're going to tell people to do one thing and then show up differently. They follow your actions every day.
Mm. Yeah, it's almost like a young child looking up to their parents with like great affection and love. And what do you want me to do, Mom? What do you want to do, Dad? That's why I asked that question very much
Yeah.
in the beginning. Like, what really impacted you as a child? I always say that the speed of the leader is the speed of the troops. Not that they're
Hmm.
going faster, but then how they are marching forward. So it's fascinating in our current political environment for sure. Um, as we get to the bottom of this,
Yeah.
what's one leadership myth you wish you could retire forever? The leadership myth.
Um,
You could have two.
you know what? The first one that comes to mind is that leaders need to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm, great
Um,
one.
and I think too many leaders believe it. I think that's a huge Achilles heel of a leader. Um, Leaders, almost by definition, cannot be the smartest guy in the room, right? They need to have, because they're not going to know everything about
Right.
everything. Um, that's not the role of leadership. Like, leader has to be a visionary to say
Hmm.
this is where we're going,
Right.
and then bring people around them who can help them get there.
Mm,
So being the smartest person in the room, like, love to retire that.
okay. You have another one you want to retire? That was a good one.
Um, yeah, let me think. Um, I think it's hard to know if this is a myth or not a myth. Um, but I think that, well, I mean, going back to like, why can't they all be like me?
Mm,
The myth that you want everybody to be like you.
mm,
The myth that, I mean, for me, it's not the reason why I'm struggling with it. It's so not a myth for me
yeah.
because I believe so. In every cell that diversity creates strength and creativity and all the things that you need to be successful in a company. And yet they're always there. I feel like the mythology of, you know, the leader picking a subsequent leader that's exactly like them
Mm.
should be retired.
Since you brought up diversity, and there have been huge attacks on DE&I in the
Hmm.
new administration, I'm just curious: are your leaders asking for any advice, counsel, direction in that regard?
At the very beginning, I think people were like trying to figure it out, what they could do, what they should do.
Mm,
Um, and I'm not an expert on this, but it feels to me what people figured out is they don't talk about it as much,
you're right.
but they still do it,
Hmm. Yes,
right? So I think that's the comp. I don't even know if it's a compromise. It could be the case that if we have fully internalized that diversity is how we operate, maybe for great companies don't have to talk about it; they just do it.
they just do it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. So as we close, this has been a great conversation. I love it. What's the next frontier for leadership growth? You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's emotional intelligence. That's like the cool thing, and you got to have your EQ and your IQ. But what's next?
Well, I mean, just thinking about what I saw at Thinkers 50, and their recognition of Paul's book and the work that he's doing. I think purpose is going to continue to, purpose has never been like real for not in my world. I don't think purpose has ever gotten the full due
Mm,
um, of the impact that it has. And it also, I think, in a lot of ways, um, purpose holds the multitudes of leadership, right?
mm,
Sometimes we think about purpose. Too often people think about purpose in too narrow a box, and to think, purpose is doing good. And I think that's just one part of it. I think purpose is really, having a vision of where the company's going to go, a vision that includes, like, sure, success for the stakeholders, but also nourishment for the employees so that you get the best employees, so that you are a good citizen in your communities so that the communities welcome and celebrate the fact that you're in their community, whatever that means, so that you can create more flourishing, human flourishing.
Right.
I think that people are going to reward those companies that really embrace that. And I think the idea of human flourishing, and by the way, I'd almost say not just flourishing, but generational flourishing. For me, it's important to think, we're not just doing things for ourselves and the people around us today, but we're also thinking about the people generations from now that are going to be living with the consequences of our decisions. And I fundamentally don't believe that those things are in conflict. I think as leaders, that's where we need to be thinking and growing.
Love it. Love it. Yes. And I just as a foreshadow for our listeners, I'm going to be interviewing Vincent Stanley from Patagonia. And he is the chief philosopher, and he just wrote a book called The Future of Responsible Business, what they learned for the first 50 years of Patagonia with Yvon Chouinard. And just an amazing company that didn't have all the smarts, and they just tried and learned, but they treat their stakeholders with such reverence and engagement. And I love their purpose, which is which Yvon changed to simplify, which is that we are in business to save our home planet. And also, they just created these two purpose trusts, and the Earth is their sole shareholder now, which is extraordinary company.
It is. There's another book out called Dirtbag Billionaire.
Yes. That's one I have to read this weekend before my interview. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, and interesting. I mean, I know we just have a few moments left, but that is a great case of purpose. They're very clear on their purpose, and they really live it. They obviously there's challenges. You're creating product, and if you create product, how is that in harmony with the earth?
Consumption, right?
But they do that the best they can within the context. And also, for example, their employees, they make a lot of money. Their employees are not the best paid employees, but I think they're among the best treated employees.
And they spend a lot of time about meaningful work. What does, to your point about the individual, what is meaningful for you? What does a leader need to do to coach his or her people so they flourish? Right.
And so they've created a whole ecosystem that enables the people who want to be part of that ecosystem to really be flourishing. And they don't have to be perfect for everybody, but the people who want to be there, like they're happy people living great lives.
Yeah. And then they also but the work that they did in supply chain and fair trade, and they're also, Vincent is like the resident storyteller. And so you go on the website and you got to spend some time there. The stories they have about fair trade and the women, and mostly, who are, they're raising a family, they're working these, sewing machines at a factory with 1,200 people, and the fair trade ones have much better situation, and how they really had to learn about investing in fair trade, and where does the extra money that they pay the company, where does it go? And then the company lets the sewing manufacturer lets the people decide. So they create a daycare center. I mean, and then there's this whole circle of virtual humanity in a way, which is
great example.
Oh my God, it's just incredible! I can't wait for that conversation. But this has been an amazing conversation. I always give the last word to my guest. So how you can say something you've already said, or you want to just an attaboy to our listeners, or anything like that.
Well, I mean, if it's okay with you, I just say, you, Carol, have been a real inspiration for me. I have known about your work for decades, even well before I got into purpose, which was a long time ago now. I just have always been inspired by your creativity and innovation, the way that you bring other people together. I'm so delighted to be in conversation with you today.
Oh my God! Thank you. That was so kind. I didn't pay him to say that, guys. But Scott Osman, he's CEO of 100 Coaches, a coach and a coachee, and a wonderful, marvelous human being. And please give my best to Marshall. He is another extraordinary human being. And I look forward. I always have my favorite guests to come back. So hopefully you'll come back when we have maybe after at the end of next year, I always like purpose predictions.
Oh,
So
love
we'll
that.
invite you back for that. So thank you so much, Scott. It's been a joy.
Likewise. Thanks, Carol.